Urgent, Putin's nut grove is burning down. The armed forces of Ukraine have achieved the impossible. A fiery greeting from our side hit the target precisely. Nature is closing the ring of vengeance around the enemy. Kamchatka has disappeared. Snow and ice have gripped the region. Moscow is paralyzed. The Russians have found themselves in a complete blockade. SYRSKYI has announced the video. Ukraine is winding Russia around its finger and launching a fierce offensive. The Kremlin is already counting its losses. And on top of Chechnya, a coup has broken out. Kadyrov's men are gradually being removed from power. Their cushy positions will be handed over. You will be shocked. Europe has rejected NATO and Trump, a new mega alliance led by Ukraine. All this in our episode Hell Point. A direct hit, the Ukrainian armed forces have eliminated the legendary Orreshnik. Putin would rather keep quiet about this, but instead Russian public channels are shouting about it everywhere. A mega attack on a top-secret training ground and a launch system completely destroyed. A barrage of misfortunes is raining down on the soldiers and the dictator. Russian missiles are striking their own positions. The Sarmat 2 is now on the list of major failures. It seems the inevitable has begun. Out of desperation, Russia is destroying itself. The answer is in the report, coming up next.
Putin's newly deployed ORESHNIK missile is under drone attack. Kapustin Yar is an ordinary settlement where people still live. And right here at the military testing ground, Russia launches ballistic and cruise missiles designed to hit targets hundreds of kilometers away. And all of this is literally right next to the civilian.
Population refers to the total number of people inhabiting a particular geographical area at a given time, which is a key metric for understanding the demographic characteristics of that region. A test stand that would allow the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile. I will always call Oreshnik a downgraded intercontinental ballistic missile because it doesn't fit any definition of a medium-range ballistic missile. That's the thing.
It was from that very place on January 9th that Russia launched ORESHNIK towards the Lviv region. And soon after, strikes hit the very training ground from which this deadly bunker weapon is launched.
Kapustin Yar was attacked by drones. The central training ground from where Oreshnik is launched is under attack. Russia was unable to protect this strategic facility.
And this isn't even the first attack on the training ground. Drones struck it back in the summer of last year.
There is already evidence confirming that the strikes on Kapustin Yar were carried out with the aim of to destroy the launchers that could be used to strike Ukrainian territory. So, in principle, there are plenty of uninteresting things there that can be destroyed, thereby reducing Russia's potential as it uses this type of weapon. There is also another very important aspect to the strikes on Kapustin Yar. This is the opportunity to strike at test samples or at warehouses with partially finished products.
But what's interesting is that missiles intended for Ukraine more and more often end up landing in Russia itself, and not always gently. This even applies to Putin's nutcracker, which he is so eager about.
They are currently engaging in a calculated and aggressive campaign to systematically intimidate the global community, utilizing provocative measures to assert dominance and instill a sense of fear and uncertainty. The missile didn't fly far and exploded on Russian territory.
But not the nutcracker. The only other one is another missile with which the bunker dweller threatens the whole world, Sarmat. However, it has never been fully launched. Well, it was launched twice, and both times it crashed on Russian territory. So what's the secret behind such successes of the Russian Federation?
Why did it crash? Yes, it crashed.
These outcomes are the direct result of those catastrophic crashes, violent explosions during launch, and various failed launches. This is primarily because Russia has gradually lost the fundamental ability to access better technical capabilities or has lost the sophisticated technical infrastructure and manufacturing base that is located in Ukraine. Of course, they have engineers, they are working, they are trying to create something.
What was supposed to be a weapon against Ukraine sometimes turns into a threat for the Russians themselves. And Ukrainian drone strikes on key Russian military infrastructure only amplify this effect.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Now officially Russia is freezing. Everyone is talking about the Kamchatka tragedy today. Entire apartment buildings have disappeared. Snow and the harsh February frost have severely punished the enemy. You have to see it to believe it. A total blackout and lack of heat are finishing off the enemy in the most unexpected places. The Russians aren't holding back their emotions, while Moscow pretends everything is under control. However, the reality has already come to the surface. Shocking videos and deadly forecasts are in the report. Coming up next. A snowfall that Moscow hasn't seen in the middle of winter for the past 56 years. And the snowfall in Kamchatka also broke a 30-year record. At the beginning of January, let me remind you, several regions of Russia were literally paralyzed by the powerful cyclone Francis, which resulted in airport delays, traffic accidents, closures of federal highways, and problems with heating and electricity.
The whole bridge has been freezing for 3 days now. The heating, electricity, and water were shut off back on December 31st. At least we have a pool where we can get water, but others are melting snow. The state of emergency was declared only on the second day, but no one tells us anything. We aren't being informed in any way. The emergency services aren't telling us anything. They just say, wait, we don't know, wait.
It is also reported that problems with electricity and heating in a number of southern regions of Russia will last for several weeks.
The situation in Krasnodar Krai and the Republic of Adygea. And in neighboring regions, the situation may remain difficult over the next 2 weeks. This is according to our sources in the Ministry of Emergency Situations. The interlocutors note that the situation has worsened due to deteriorating weather conditions. At the same time, in some places, the infrastructure is showing signs of wear and tear. Sources also report that emergency services are unable to respond quickly to the disaster due to the large amount of snow.
But after the snow cyclone, severe frosts are expected.
According to preliminary estimates on January 19th, as is typical in clear anticyclonic weather, real epiphany frost will hit. By morning, temperatures will drop to -20, -25, and on January 20th and 21st, the nighttime cold will intensify to -25, -30, and during the day it will be -12 to -17, which is 15 degrees below the norm of the climate. These abnormal frosts could last for almost a week, and of course the forecast will still be updated.
In addition, meteorologists report that abnormal frosts down to -36 degrees are heading for central Russia. And while Russians are struggling with the bad weather, certain government officials are coming up with conspiracy nonsense, namely that the bad weather could be the result of the use of climate weapons against Russia.
Obviously, such a volume of precipitation can't just fall suddenly for no reason. This was done to divert our resources to dealing with the aftermath of the bad weather, the interlocutor says. It should be noted that this was not the only such interlocutor.
Meanwhile, Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin, due to the abnormal frosts, is demanding better protection for Moscow.
Sergei Semyonovich requested additional air defense systems from the military to protect the capital. They promised to take care of everything. These are very difficult times. We hope everything will be all right, a source close to the Moscow mayor commented on the situation.
As we can see, the temperature in the halls of power and in the kitchens of ordinary Russians remains consistently different. Only now, it's not just a metaphor about the gulf between the people and the authorities, but quite literally about the fact that the temperature in the office of someone like Sobyanin and that of an ordinary Russian is actually different. SYRSKYI has announced that Ukraine is gearing up for an offensive and Russia should prepare itself. The Ukrainian armed forces are grinding the earth beneath them and preparing deadly strikes for the occupiers. Moscow is nervous, there aren't enough soldiers, and the announced mobilization is clearly limping along. Putin has ordered the defense industry to switch to turbo mode. It could happen at any moment. An explosion, tensions are rising, and our forces are hitting the enemy with cutting-edge technology. So what could the real end of Russia look like? We'll discuss this and more in just a moment. While the civilized world hopes for negotiations, the armed forces of Ukraine harbor no illusions and are preparing for a new escalation. Ukraine is planning not only to hold the line, but also to regain the initiative on the battlefield. We
see the enemy's actions and we don't see any signs that they are preparing for any peace talks or initiatives or any actions on the battlefield. On the contrary, we are seeing an increase in the intensity of combat operations and a buildup of offensive groupings. The enemy is increasing both the quantity and the scale of production of strike weapons, missiles, and drones.
The commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, stated in an interview with LBUA that it is impossible to win this war by defense alone. It is impossible to win this war. That is why the General Staff is already incorporating new offensive operations into its strategy. According to Syrsky, Russia's strategic goal remains unchanged: the occupation of all of Ukraine. Only the timelines, available resources, and the amount of weaponry the Kremlin possesses at each stage of the war change. And under these conditions, passive defense only plays into their hands. We
will conduct offensive operations. And of course, we will fight to maintain operational initiative, because this forces the enemy to deploy and divert significant resources, human resources, weaponry, and ammunition in order to counter our active operations.
The logic of the General Staff is simple. Offensive actions do not necessarily mean a large-scale advance, but they deprive the enemy of freedom of maneuver, force them to redeploy reserves, and weaken them in other sectors of the front. This is exactly how Ukraine plans to exhaust the Russian army, by imposing its own tempo of the war.
A definitive victory for Ukraine signifies that the nation has successfully thwarted Moscow's aggressive strategic plans, those specific Russian military and political objectives aimed at completely eliminating Ukrainian statehood. This triumph ensures the prevention of hostile forces from occupying the entire sovereign territory, thereby securing a future of independence and freedom for the country. The Russian Federation's persistent inability to achieve such a decisive victory,
which in fact was proclaimed by Putin and is supported by a significant part of Russian society. This, in my view, is what Ukraine's victory means.
In 2026, Russia's approach does not change. Russia, as before, is placing its bets, not on efficiency but on sheer numbers. According to SYRSKYI, the mobilization potential of the aggressor country exceeds 20 million people, of whom 4.5 million are already now the prepared reserve. This year, Moscow plans to conscript more than 409,000 people, while simultaneously forming new divisions and replenishing losses, which over the past 2 years of war have already exceeded 850,000.
There will be at least 11 different divisions for the current calendar year. And of course, the continuation of carrying out all those plans, those tasks that were not fulfilled last year.
However, even with this approach, the aggressor faces serious limitations. According to the Ukrainian command, despite large-scale mobilization, the number of the enemy's assault groups at the front remains almost unchanged. All this is due to the colossal losses, which deplete resources faster than they can be replenished. This is exactly what derailed Moscow's plans to form fully-fledged reserve armies and force them to throw fresh troops into patching up already existing sections of the front.
That is part of the strategic reserve. You remember, he planned for 14 divisions. He managed to form no more than half, and even then only partially, as this resource was used to replenish losses.
But the Kremlin's main bet is not just on numbers. Russia is sharply increasing the production of strike drones and plans to reach the use of up to 1,000 drones per day. This means a change in the very logic of the war. Even greater depth of strikes, constant pressure on the rear, and new challenges for Ukrainian air defense and the front as a whole. At the same time, SYRSKYI emphasizes that 2025 has not become a year of defeats for Ukraine. Russia has not managed to implement any of its strategic plans. Neither breakthroughs deep into Ukraine, nor the encirclement of key positions, nor the breaking of defensive lines.
The enemy has not been able to carry out any of its plans. You remember how many loud statements there were about them finishing this so-called special military operation before summer, or, for example, before the new year. There were a lot of such statements. I don't even know, I can only recall 6 or 7 just for certain directions. Offensives were planned. They had very ambitious plans to capture our country, but none of those plans were realized.
But a more difficult stage lies ahead. The war is increasingly turning into a competition of economies and technologies. Drones, artificial intelligence, hypersonic strikes, and a state's ability to scale up weapons production faster than the enemy play the decisive role. And that is precisely why the Commander-in-Chief emphasizes no one negotiates with the weak. Conditions for peace are created only through strength.
The production of missile weapons in sufficient quantities. This concerns both ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. And also the use of new cutting-edge types of weapons, such as laser weapons, and moving to a new level of technological equipment for the army, the armed forces. This will allow us to reduce the direct involvement of people in combat operations and increase, in fact, the participation of machines, primarily drone systems, and of course, the further development of artificial intelligence.
Essentially, Ukraine is betting on the war of the future, where the decisive factor is not the size of the army, but technology, the economy, and the ability to adapt more quickly. According to SYRSKYI, it is precisely in this area that Ukraine has real grounds to count on a turning point in the war.
A sensation is happening in Chechnya, something that could knock even Putin off his feet. The Kadyrov clan is dying off like flies. Ramzan Kadyrov is on his deathbed, and now there's another piece of news. His son Adam was involved in a terrible accident, and it's unknown whether he's alive. The shocking truth about the dynasty: the killers have finally been identified. This information is not for the faint of heart. Moscow is making a sharp turn and sweeping away the Kadyrovites. The name of the one who could take the throne has been announced. A coup is imminent. Be the first to know. The entire Chechen elite is in shock. An accident occurred in Grozny, which all Russian information resources were forbidden to report on. The truth is being concealed. There were no emergency alerts either.
There is currently a very heavy and massive traffic jam. An emergency ambulance is quickly coming, and absolutely everyone is getting ready to let it pass through safely. That's the attitude toward ambulances here.
At the same time, the Yandex.Traffic service did not register any major traffic jams on the streets of Grozny, and the Republican hospital was closed. Adam Kadyrov, the youngest and favorite son of the head of Chechnya, was involved in a serious accident. It is reported that the car veered off the road and crashed into a fence.
The motorcade, as usual, was moving at high speed. Car after car, when suddenly they encountered an obstacle. As a result, the cars started crashing into each other, so we're receiving information that there are quite a few injured, but it's because of Adam that there's such a commotion.
The place where Adam Kadyrov's motorcade crashed was blocked off for 3 days after the accident. Telegram channels are also reporting that a mixed martial arts fighter may have been injured in the accident. Hamzat Chimaev.
I'm alive, I didn't die, as perhaps some people would have liked. I'm in Abu Dhabi.
Amid the rumors, he posted a black and white photo with Adam and a caption in the spirit of religious consolation.
As long as we believe nothing bad will happen to us.
The condition of the 3 bodyguards is also being kept secret. One of them is likely Beslan Kaimov. He suffered serious spinal cord injuries, which means the possibility of lifelong paralysis.
Most likely Adam was driving first. An eyewitness from the hospital reported that Adam was in an extremely terrible condition. He was hard to recognize. A photo from the scene of the accident. We don't have one, but residents of Grozny sent it in.
Sources claim that the Chechen Ministry of Internal Affairs allegedly classified the incident as an assassination attempt. At the same time, strange flights are being recorded. Medical flights, an emergency ministry plane with a patient on board.
Half an hour later, Ramzan Kadyrov's personal plane landed at Vnukovo. He also rushed to Moscow. Later, this gave rise to many memes. Thanks to Kadyrov, who in the evening of the 16th shared 2 pieces of news, one bad and one good. On the one hand, his son got into a car accident, and on the other, Kadyrov suddenly had a close relative as a donor for both kidneys at once. A donor who, due to his critically deteriorating health, is now extremely necessary for him.
Ramzan Kadyrov tried to deny the accident. A video was published on his Telegram channel, supposedly showing a recent meeting between Adam Kadyrov and law enforcement officers. There, Adamka received yet another medal for his contributions to improving the safety of nuclear power plants.
For his significant contribution and assistance to the Organization for the Protection and Security of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, awarded the gold medal for contributions to improving the safety of nuclear power plants to the assistance of the Lviv Republic, Secretary of the Security Union Adam Ramzanovich Kadyrov.
But the file's metadata indicates that the video was created a day before the accident. So this isn't a rebuttal, it's just a canned video.
I will track you down, and we will finally see which one of us is the true devil.
Ramzan Kadyrov had a nephew named Turpal Ali. At the age of 13, Turpal Ali was already driving a car, and in 2017 he got into an accident and became disabled. And then he died. Almost 18 years later, the story.
It is a common observation that history often repeats itself as the various events and patterns of the past frequently recur in similar ways throughout the different eras of human civilization.
Kadyrov has held the position of head of Chechnya since 2007. His term as head is set to end in 2026. If we recall how Kadyrov, Ramzan, came to power, the rumors surrounding the accidents involving his son Adam take on a different significance. Ramzan's father, Akhmat Kadyrov, was killed in May 2004 as a result of an explosion at a stadium in Grozny. A few years later, Ramzan's brother also died under accidental circumstances. After that, the path to power for the young Ramzan was cleared. In 2007, Putin officially appointed him as the head of Chechnya. Since then, the republic has become the personal domain of the family. In exchange for absolute security and power.
Why did the Chechen authorities get so scared and try to cover up the incident? Maybe it's because the Republic is once again probably a powder keg and any emergency could become a detonator?
The FSB worked hard to ensure that total censorship and fear reign on the territory of Chechnya. For more than 20 years, residents have been living in an atmosphere of terror and constant threat, where a comment, a like, or a message in a group can lead to abduction, torture, and public apologies.
By the beginning of 2026, already 93 people from Ramzan Kadyrov's inner circle hold official positions in the Republic, or own significant assets there. Significant assets. These are relatives and associates of Chechnya's irreplaceable leader.
Is this accident a coincidence or a signal within the elites? The question of succession of power. Amid Ramzan Kadyrov's serious illness, this question has long been in the air. And Adam Kadyrov's name comes up more and more often in these discussions. In Moscow, not everyone is thrilled about the idea of passing Chechnya on to Adam as an inheritance, and some are promoting another Adam instead.
The politician Adam Delimkhanov. When we turn our attention to the specific details regarding the current physical health and overall general condition of the younger son of Ramzan Kadyrov, there are several important factors and various reports that we must carefully consider in order to understand the full scope of the situation as it stands today.
At this current moment, absolutely nothing is officially confirmed or known. It's also unknown where he is now.
The clinic in Grozny, where Adam was initially sent, is a particular point of pride for Ramzan Kadyrov. It was built from scratch. Kadyrov himself believed that the best doctors in the world worked there, but for some reason he didn't trust them with his own son.
There are insider reports that he is in a Moscow hospital in a special section of the facility where patients are admitted only by order of the head of the Russian Ministry of Health or the Moscow mayor's office.
Adam Kadyrov was hospitalized in the 9th surgical building of the Botkin Hospital. Renovations in this building were only recently completed and it is used for emergency surgeries. The patient's condition is assessed as serious.
There are a lot of coincidences in this accident, too many secrets, and overly anxious attempts to pretend that nothing happened. The world has stopped hiding it, Europe without the US, NATO is losing its significance, and Trump is essentially left out in the open during the storm. A new mega alliance bursts onto the scene. The contingent is preparing to act independently, and Kiev becomes a key player. Zelensky will lead the United Army. This is a real breakthrough for Ukraine. But does Europe have enough strength to manage without the American shield? We'll talk about this and more in just a moment.
The political crisis surrounding the island of Greenland has made the EU consider how to move forward without America's support. Donald Trump made it clear to the whole world that he is determined to take the island at any cost.
If we don't go in there, someone else will. Russia and China. Denmark won't be able to do anything about it. But we can do everything.
The threat from the US president to impose tariffs on any country that tries to stop him. The attempt to seize Greenland became the last straw for the EU's patience. This is reported by the American publication Politico.
But for many European governments, including America's oldest and most loyal allies, Trump's threat to impose punitive tariffs against Anyone who tries to prevent him from seizing Greenland became the last straw. They believe that divorce is now inevitable. In private conversations, concerned European officials call Trump's hasty decision to annex sovereign Danish territory madness and delusion. Politico.
It seems that Europe is ready to create a new alliance to replace NATO without the US, but with Ukraine. Ukraine can play a crucial role in this defense alliance due to its size, geographical location, its defense industry, and the fact that it is already at war and has invaluable experience.
Ukraine will be key to Europe's defense. First and foremost because of its technological base. In particular, it has established the production of top-class drones and possesses the largest army in Europe. Juraj Majin, military analyst.
For example, the United Kingdom, France, the Scandinavian and Baltic countries, Poland, Germany and Italy. For most of Trump's second term, they worked within an effective group without America, the so-called Coalition of the Willing, and it could become the beginning of a defense alliance between Ukraine and Europe.
The Coalition of the Willing initially focused on issues concerning Ukraine. It created very close ties between some key people in the capitals. They changed the level of trust and the ability to cooperate. They know each other by name, and it's easy for them to get in touch and not leave messages unanswered. If we include the military power of Ukraine, as well as the power of France, Germany, Poland and Great Britain, the potential military power of the Coalition of the Willing will be enormous and will include both nuclear and non-nuclear states. Politico.
Now, Europe is completely purchasing US weapons for Ukraine, and Ukraine in turn has the largest combat-ready army in Europe. Therefore, a new military alliance without the US is quite possible, considering that the danger from Russia will not disappear even after a possible peace agreement.
Ukraine has friends who understand the nature of Russian aggression as a shared problem. With them, we can try to create defensive alliances. On a tactical level, we can attempt to form regional unions. For example, the Baltic countries, Poland, other Central European states, and the United Kingdom. This will be a temporary and not very stable means of pursuing our strategic interests. But it is possible and necessary to look for other options for defensive alliances. Anatoly Krugleshov, political scientist.
The question of the need for EU defense without US support has been discussed for a long time. In recent days, numerous initiatives and bold headlines have been coming out of Brussels, and a coalition of the willing with Ukraine could be the beginning of the creation of a new defense alliance. Officially, the EU has decided to ensure its self-defense by 2030. But in the context of war, this decision could be made much sooner.
That's all from me for now. This was me, Darina Hutsakalo. Even more scorching news in our next episode. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you